Welcome to a new Daily Top AskReddit video. Today's topic:
what would instantly destroy your life just by doing it once? I have a huge fear of accidentally hitting someone with my car at night. Ever check the rearview mirror to make sure that actually was just a pothole you ran over at night? One day, Michael came in complaining about a speed bump on the highway. I wonder who he ran over then. I have a friend who was driving home from dropping his buddy at the airport at 2 a.m. Going along the highway, nothing weird happening, normal calm night. Then boom, buddy hears and feels a massive impact against his 4x4. Gains control of the car, slows down, investigates. It's a person, or was a person, just bent up on the road from rolling under my friend's truck. Fast forward a few hours, the cops are called, they're there asking questions, identifying the corpse. Buddy gets taken in for more questioning about the speed he was going, etc. Eventually, the cops release him, no charges. He asks, has something happened? They identified the deceased, and contacted his family. Turns out his family had been contacting a different police station for hours trying to find their son. Story goes something happened in his life, and he said goodbye to his family cryptically before disappearing for hours. Conclusion was he decided to commit suicide by lying on the highway. My friend just happened to be at the wrong place wrong time. Didn't make what my buddy went through any easier, took him years to get over it. I work at a Freightliner dealership, and a truck got towed in with some damage to the right front corner. Busted headlight, hood mirror, wasn't major damage. Found out they towed it because it was involved in a truck versus person collision. A man had parked his car in the shoulder of the highway like it was disabled. He ducked down in front of it and waited for the right moment, then jumped out in front of a truck and trailer. Obviously, he accomplished his goal. I had noticed a few small pieces of clothing stuck to the front of the truck. I heard the driver was, needless to say, shaken up pretty bad. Committing suicide by making someone else accidentally kill you is one of the most selfish dickhead moves of all time. Negligent homicide. I'm sure self-defense killings are not as difficult to handle as it is justified, not saying everyone would be fine, but negligent homicide is another level. You drive drunk, text while driving, or not pay attention and smack into a pedestrian, you're going to live in a nightmare. Deleted. May have dodged a bullet though, EU said not great judgment for that, likely not good judgment for the rest. Intentional homicide can also destroy your life. But it definitely destroyed someone else's. Reconnecting with people who were bad influences on you. You'd be surprised how quick one can return to their old ways. Underrated answer, but absolutely, if you want to be a new man you have to go to new places with new people who never knew you. I Facebook messaged a friend from the old life. It was 2 messages before he was ploying to remember things we did in our ignorant youth and asking me to confess we did things together. He never gave that stuff up and went far deeper. I regret those times. We grew up in filth and I've never looked back. He was so smart and he squandered it. You have to escape the ghosts of who you were and embrace who you are now. Never let your past dictate your future. You can't drag them up, they just drag you down. Sometimes it's either that or be alone. A friend from childhood is in this boat. He alienated most of the people in his life over the decades from both poor choices and mental issues. At this point, I am the only person from his childhood who still talks to him. Only family left alive is a single sister and she finally had enough 15 years ago. So he only has a few people who he sees regularly and they're just users. He's given up on life and says while he isn't actually suicidal, he would welcome death. Road rage. Guy the first went to middle school with jumped out of his car and beat a guy he was road raging with so badly that he was partially paralyzed by the end of it. Guy was 19 and got a 45-year prison sentence. Completely fucked his whole life up and will only have a few years in the outside, and that's if he's lucky and lives that long. My idiot ex had terrible road rage. He bragged one day that someone pulled a gun on him for a road rage incident and was apparently too chicken to pull the trigger. He thought it was funny. Fucking dumbass. My friend had an ex like that. Road raged so hard at a woman one day, he told my friend to pull up alongside her at a light. My friend was, naturally, scared and didn't do it. Can you guess what happened? This guy gets out of the car during rush hour with hundreds of other people around and makes this woman get out of her car, then fucking pushes her. All with a smile on his face. People like this are unstable. She's lucky he never physically took his anger out on her. Girl I went to MS and HS with was the victim of a road rage incident. Guy pushed her off the road and killed her. Ended her life, ruined her family's life, and ruined his own life cause he's in prison. One moment of anger leading to a lifetime of regret. I had an uncle who was driving on the freeway and the car in front was brake checking him. He swerves to cut in front of the car and slams the brakes to brake check the other guy. They crashed and both had serious injuries, but luckily they were both fine in the end. So stupid to let road rage to consume you. Yeah. I always try to just move away from anyone displaying any hinky driving behaviors, the further the better. Will not engage with idiots slinging 2 tons of metal around. As an older guy in the trades, fuck around with safety. I've seen enough people fuck their livelihood up by taking a stupid unnecessary chance. It's always a shame when you hear of a young tradesperson die because you know they probably don't know better or didn't work with people who were teaching them how to do it safely. Number 1 rule is come home at the end of each day. I wish more answers on this post were like yours. I've had someone die in the workplace because they didn't lock a moving staircase, and it's just ridiculous the amount of people I see climbing on shit they shouldn't in order to get a job done a couple minutes quicker. I'm a custodian at a middle school. We had a leak in a roof and needed to get into a cupboard that was near the ceiling to clean up the water and put a bucket up to catch the leak. I said, I'll go grab the ladder, and went to do just that. When I came back, my coworker was sitting on the ground holding his foot and the teacher was calling the office. The chair he was standing on was on its side and in the middle of the room. He broke his ankle, got reprimanded, and had to take a bunch of safety classes over. And I had to clean up the mess by myself and cover the rest of his shift. Not the point, but irritating nonetheless. My dad works in a steel mill and there is an exterior conveyor belt for the large pipe to move along towards the storing and loading area. The conveyor belt is electrically controlled and the pipe moves at about 20 kilometers an hour along the conveyor. The pipes that move along the conveyor belt are between 10-inch and 14-inch in diameter. There is a man door in which to access. You have to hit an emergency stop on the conveyor belt, and flip up a section of the conveyor in order to cross and access the door. The important step is hitting the emergency stop, because you can still flip up the conveyor without hitting the stop, which still sends pipes down the line. There are signs everywhere near this section of conveyor stating the steps and procedure to access the door, the rate of speed of the pipe on the conveyor, and many other safety warnings. In the early 2000s there was an employee who did not hit the emergency stop when a 14-inch by 20 feet pipe came down the conveyor. It effectively cut him in half. My dad was supervising in the loading yard that day and saw the whole thing from across the yard. Nobody wants to see a coworker killed in such a gruesome way, and he did not die immediately either. He bled out during the hour it took the ambulance to arrive. Ugh, I had a truck driver text me saying he wanted to kiss me the next time he saw me. Wasn't an employee of the mine I was on, it was a delivery driver subby to a supplier. I asked my boss to request sexual harassment training was rolled out by the supplier. Didn't want the dude to lose his job over what he probably perceived as a joke, but also didn't want that behavior to continue because as someone WHI had been sexually assaulted in the workplace, and given I escorted this guy's truck to an isolated area of the mine alone, I needed to feel safe. A few months later driver arrived on site again. I told my boss I wasn't going to escort him, obvious reasons. My boss said, maybe you can just go and see if he's changed. No cunt. I don't know if he's going to react angrily and if he has a weapon in the truck, and even if not, I'm a small female, that, finding out if he has changed, can result in a lot of potentially horrific outcomes if it hasn't. I see jackasses on Instagram all the time shitting on people for their PPE. Ain't nobody in the trades getting clowned on for having their hearing intact and still able to lift 45 pounds at retirement. See it on the job constantly. Kids just standing around without ear pro while a 125 decibel hydraulic hammer smashes up concrete. Spend a day like that, and you'll be hearing it for the rest of your life. Ask me how I know. Closing parenthesis. When I was an apprentice, the hardest thing was standing up to people who were in the trade for plus 15 years who asked you to do blatantly unsafe work. I was nearly fired off a job for not going into a confined space that was approximately 10 feet below ground, with the work area being several hundred feet away. There were no air monitors and the radio relay was dead, so 200 feet in you'd lose communication. The best part was our staging area was less than 15 minutes away, where they had charged air monitors and relays. Luckily the safety officer just happened to stop by that morning and saw the foreman in my face. Apparently I was the reason no one else would go down to work. The safety guy made it a point to stop by our site first every morning. Unfortunately I was moved to the worst job on the site, but I felt better knowing the people in the confined space had working equipment. My supervisor got pissed off at me because I refused to lift him up in the air on a pallet with a forklift to run Ethernet cable in the ceiling of a warehouse. I wouldn't have done it with a brand new forklift, but this one was very old and in poor condition too, with a very touchy, jerky clutch and brakes. I've run lots of cable in forklift baskets, but I told him I wasn't going up on a pallet. He angrily told me, fine, well lift me up and I'll do it. I told him no, neither of us are going up on a pallet. He tells me, yes. You're going to do it. I stood my ground and told him in fact no, I'm not. And because I've been working for the company long enough and know my value, followed it up with, "What are you going to do? Fire me?" Quote, "We ended up borrowing a basket from somewhere, and a few minutes into using it, he was like, 'Yeah, that pallet would have been a bad idea with this forklift.'" Quote, "You never know. Standing your ground on legit safety issues might have saved lives. Good job, seriously. Saving lives isn't glamorous. I'm sorry your workplace was shitty about it, but you did the right thing."